Hello, Bay Ridge. Welcome to another edition of After Hours. I wanted to take a couple of minutes this week to talk about the importance of us confessing Jesus before the world. On Sunday, we had looked at the trial of Peter as Peter denied Jesus 3 times under the pressure that was brought against him to not acknowledge that he was a follower of Jesus Christ. And that text applies to us. It's clearly meant to be an example for us of what not to follow, and shows us the dangers that Peter got himself into and that we could easily find ourselves in. And this is becoming increasingly important for us as our culture around us is becoming much more hostile to Christianity, to Jesus, to the truths of Scripture. It used to be that the general societal pressure was to conform, at least to some measure, and say that one agreed with Jesus in the Scripture, but now it's becoming a pressure to do exactly the opposite. So how do we confess Jesus before the world around us? The first thing is obviously just evangelism, that you and I are called to share the good news of Jesus Christ with those who are around us. We have to do this even if it seems embarrassing to us, even if we have fear regarding it, what it might mean for us, for our reputation, how it might affect our relationships with others, or how it might even affect our career or our standing, whatever it might be. We are called to share the good news with others. This is a call that applies to all Christians, not just a few, but to all of us. We have this call from God, and we must faithfully do it. Now, it's important for us to remember we are not responsible for the results. We don't determine whether somebody comes to Christ or not, whether they embrace the gospel or not, but we are responsible to share the gospel with them, both just looking for opportunities, as Peter expresses it, being ready to give an answer for the hope that lies within us as people are questioning us about what we believe and how we live. So the first way is simply through evangelism, we confess Christ. But there's a second way that it's important for us today in our culture to be able to confess Christ, and that includes standing for Jesus by standing for the truth of Scripture on the great moral issues that are facing us. The great reformer Martin Luther gave a quote in his day that is very applicable for us today. Luther said, "If I profess with the loudest voice and clearest exposition every portion of the truth of God, except that little point which the world and the devil are at that moment attacking, I am not confessing Christ, however boldly I might be professing Christ. Where the battle rages, there the loyalty of the soldier is proved. And to be steady on all the battlefields besides is mere flight and disgrace if he flinches at that point." Notice what Luther says is the point of being a soldier is we have to be faithful at the point of battle. It's not enough to boast in some other place, but at the exact place where the battle is happening. And in our culture, there are several different things that are going on even right now that we as believers are called to boldly, faithfully, consistently proclaim Christ, to proclaim the truth of Scripture, because this is where the devil is pressing home the point. So just a few of them that come to mind here. One of them related back to evangelism is that Jesus is the only way to heaven, that there is no other way to God. We want to hear that there are many ways as long as people are sincere, but the Scripture is clear. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." We cannot flinch at that point. We must unhesitatingly proclaim that Jesus is the only way to God. Secondly, there's the issue of abortion. This is very, very hotly contested in our culture right now. And I want to be clear, abortion is not a political issue. It is a moral issue that will have political implications, but it is primarily a moral issue. Christians are mandated to stand for the dignity of all human life from the moment of conception to the moment of death. That is not going to be popular in our culture, but it is mandatory for Christians. There is no room for disagreement here. Life begins at conception. We see this in Psalm 139 and Jeremiah chapter 1. We see it even in Luke as we look back during Advent last year, that even the second Mary was only days or weeks into her pregnancy at most. And when she came into the presence of Elizabeth, John the Baptist responded even in the womb. Both of them are showing life does not begin at birth, but rather at conception. And this means to confess Christ, we cannot use the foolishness of I am personally opposed to abortion, but I'm not going to try and force that upon others. Just replace the word abortion with what it actually is, which is murder. I'm personally opposed to murder, but I'm not going to force that on other people. I trust that everyone sees the foolishness and actually the evil of that statement. It is no different with abortion, because abortion is actually the snuffing out, the murder of a human being. So I want to encourage us all right now. We have the Right to Life March coming up on March the 27th. I urge and encourage you to come to that and to stand for life. Confess Christ by standing for life. Another area is in the area of human sexuality. This is the third area. The scripture is very, very clear. There is only male and female, and marriage is between one man and one woman in a lifelong bond and covenant before God, and all sexual expression can only happen within that context. There are many who falsely, they either are ignorant of what the scripture teaches, or they are liars. They proclaim that Jesus didn't speak about this. He did very clearly, unequivocally in Matthew chapter 19, when Jesus says, haven't you read, in the beginning God made them male and female, and for this reason a man will leave his father and mother, be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. What God has joined together, let no one separate. These are the words of Jesus Christ. This is the teaching of Jesus, that we are made male or female, and that marriage is the bond between a male and a female. Now, this does not mean that we are mean to people or we deny their humanity. It does mean, however, that loving them means I do not encourage and strengthen them in their delusion. If there are those who believe I was, born in a male body, but I'm actually a woman, or I was born in a female body, or I don't fit on the so-called gender binary. All of that is a lie and a deception of Satan, and Christians cannot participate that either in word or action. We are kind, but we don't encourage people in their delusions, because that is actually uncompassionate towards them. That is confirming them in the lies of Satan, and we can't do that. Going to be very unpopular in our culture, but we have to confess Christ where the battle is raging. And then a third area is the dignity of all human beings, the dignity of all human beings. This means that we have to recognize the dignity of every single human, whatever their ethnicity, whether they are male or female, people from every single nation. We are first and foremost humans, and for us Christians, not first and foremost Americans, for example. We recognize the dignity, the equal dignity of all human beings. This includes those with whom we disagree. It's very popular today, if somebody disagrees with me, to start speaking about them and say they are animals, to use this degrading language, stating that they are somehow less than human. We cannot participate in that as Christians. And people with whom we might agree on a particular issue, for example, the issue of human sexuality, we might agree with them, but if they start speaking of others as being animals or somehow less than human, we cannot go with that. If we, as we wrestle through how to handle immigration and our border situation, we cannot speak of those who politically disagree with us as being less than human, nor can we speak about anyone seeking entry to our country as being less than human. We may have to say that we don't agree with somebody coming across the border without going through proper channels, but it is never about the worth of the individual coming across to us. We have to agree that every human being is created in the image of God, has complete dignity in the image of God. Even those I disagree with have equal dignity and worth with me. It's important for us to do that. We cannot degrade people by our speech or by our actions. To do so is actually to degrade the image of God. So this is just 4 ways that come up that we can be confessing Christ and not shrink back as Peter did on that night. In evangelism, in standing true for human life regarding the issue of abortion, and standing true for the truth of God on human sexuality, in the whole array of sexual revolution that is before us, LGBTQ plus and other things, and then the dignity of all human beings, where we recognize even those with whom we might disagree, for example, on the question of LGBTQ plus, we do not degrade their humanity. We don't confirm anybody in their error, but we do not degrade humanity. Rather, we always speak respectfully to others. This is 4 ways that we can confess Jesus before a watching world. And I encourage us in our own trials, temptations, and testing, let's be like Jesus, not like Peter, standing firm and confessing the truth no matter what the cost. Hope this is helpful and encourages you to walk with Jesus. And I encourage you, again, let's prepare to come out and stand for life together. And this week, let's come together and pray for revival and awakening in our culture as we are looking for God to pour out his Spirit and bring us revival and awakening. I hope you have a great week. God bless.